I never grew up with educators that looked like myself. I always knew that wisdom was a powerful tool, but I also know that oftentimes we neglect it because of who it comes from.
Facts.
It's not necessarily just about being a king, it's more so about becoming a kingmaker.
Man, you got to be close enough to relate, but far enough ahead to inspire. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Let's Grow Together podcast, the place where diverse individuals and communities come to serve, connect, and grow in the areas that they're most passionate about. It's your boy James. I am joined with my brother Marcus, as always. How you doing today, brother?
What's going on, family? Boy, I missed that intro. It's been a little
For
while since we
sure.
heard it, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
doing well, man. Doing well. Quick check-in, man. Had an opportunity to go to Puerto Rico with some of my guys a few weeks back.
Okay.
Phenomenal, mind-blowing trip. Feel very in tune, really rejuvenated in regards. And then following that, had we actually celebrated our first anniversary, my wife and I. So
Hold on. I
again,
already know
just
we
in
gotta
a great,
we
yeah,
gotta go.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in a great state, beyond appreciative, man. Recharge as we get ready to kick the year off with a lot of good things, man. We're looking at 14 schools this year supporting. So yeah, man, just charged up, bro. How you feeling though?
Man, first and foremost, shout out to y'all, man. 1 year married. I know that's a major milestone. Man, things are going good. I'm in this new role. I'm loving it. We just added another tool to my tool belt, so I am and basically responsible for creating the training for our new mentors. And bro, it has been mind blowing how like just learning like how much I know about this stuff because now you got to break it down and teach it to somebody else. And
Yeah.
it was so dope because we found a platform where I create courses. So basically, we have a course about our 4 E's to success. And the dopest part is like I'm able to not only create my own videos and put it on there, but I can also tap into resources with YouTube and other places to like plug that into the course so that these mentors can go through this. Again, learn about the 4 E's to success, learn about the subconscious mind, and then learn some of the SEO competencies, and really like help prepare them to go in the classroom. But the funny thing is I'm like, look, in the training, the first thing I did in the training, bro, I was like, before we get started, this is mentorship 101, right? You gotta establish your why, like, cause no matter what I'm about to teach you, if you are not passionate about this work, like you will quit. Like I am telling you this because there will be, and I kept it real. I'm like, there will be times you might feel you pouring into someone's cup more than you should be, and you're getting no return. You may give all of your energy to somebody and you don't get anything in return, but this is what this work is about because I can guarantee you a couple years down the line like it'll pay off. But I also said to him like, this is not a blueprint to be the best mentor, the perfect mentor. Like I am just giving you information, and everything that we teach is storytelling. So I want you to take this information, interweave it with your story because you have a great story to tell, and then go ahead and let's impact some youth. And it was so funny. One of the mentees was like, "Bro, like I've never had a training start like that. Like it was so real." And it was like I appreciated that.
Transparency is key, but you said a piece. It's easy to understand, but when you're having to teach, right, that's a whole nother level of understanding. Being able to digest, but also be able to articulate and develop others in that arena. So, kudos as always, man. But let's kick it off, man. What you got for us? I know you got another fire quote as always.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's see what we got today. All right. So it says change, but start slowly because direction is more important than speed.
Mm,
Marcus, we coming to you,
mm.
man. This is actually a quote you sent to me. What is this? How does this quote resonate with you?
Pivot used to be like a thing of mine.
Yeah, yeah,
I think especially just being like I can think about like the early stages, kind of like high school, early college, where a lot of people are still figuring out themselves. And I think it's vital to be able to have more so a sense of direction opposed to the speed, right? I
yeah,
think again, we live in a generation of instant gratification. We always want something right then and there, but you got to figure out. I kind of say like, right, you got to figure out the coordinates before you figure out the speed, right? You got to know the
yeah,
direction in which you want to work towards to be able to attain it, opposed to just getting to it quick, right?
yeah,
Falling in
yeah,
love with the process is what it makes me think of more than anything.
yeah.
What about
I
yourself?
bro, I just started smiling because like obviously I love the work that I do, but it's really a shameless plug. One of the 4 E's that we teach is evaluate. And evaluate is the lesson about self assessing, right? So for me, this quote, it says to change, but start slow, right? In the self assessing stage, before we set any of these goals, we got to figure out where we're starting at, right? Whether that's our fitness, whether that's our finances, whether that's our relationship, we got to figure out where we at, right? And for me, change is inevitable. Like it's gonna happen, but you
Mhm.
have to make sure that when change happens, you adapt, right? Because again, it said direction is more important than speed. I didn't say that you had to make sure as soon as change happens, you change. No, you have to be once the change occurs, you're like, all right, let me assess myself again in that evaluate stage, and then once you've made that assessment, then you can go forward and make the appropriate moves. Because I think a lot of times we'll have an opportunity or something present itself, or we'll have a goal and then we'll just start doing stuff, right? Like we never even really got to the starting
Yeah.
line to know where we're starting from. I gave the a real quick example. Like if I wanted to lose 20 pounds by my birthday, if I never get on the scale to see how much I weigh right now, and my birthday comes, and how do I know if I really lost weight? I'm like, yeah, I might have, my figure might have changed, right? But how do I really know if the scale moved? So that's what I think
Mm.
about when I think about this quote. It's like I'm gonna change. I know change is gonna happen, but I'm gonna do it on my time because I've made the proper assessment to say, all right, this is the move I need to make now.
Definitely, right? They say that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, but what direction are you taking that step in, right?
Yeah,
So now
yeah,
I can definitely relate. Interested to get a little perspective from our guest, Miss Crystal.
yeah,
Come
yeah,
on, come holler at us and let us know what you think about this quote. What is this? What does this
yeah.
mean to
So
you? How does it pertain to you?
Hey, first of all, hey y'all.
hello, hello,
I
hello.
think that this quote really resonates in the fact that we all resist change in one way or another, right?
Mm.
Because change does not feel good. You even think about when a baby is getting a new tooth, like they're resisting the change because there's a pain behind that change, right?
Mm,
But the fact of start slowly, you're not in a race to compete with anyone else, right? There's really not a blueprint for who you are going to be. Like you literally are walking this thing out day by day, but it's the fact
Mhm.
of those small incremental changes that actually give you the momentum to actually be where you desire to be. And so where it talks about direction is more important than speed, you can be racing and going so fast, almost in competition mode, and you don't went completely away from your destiny, your purpose, your vision, your plan. And so it's like, oh yeah, you made some level of a goal line, right? You made it there quicker than someone else, but it was actually not the place where you were intended to be. So it's like slow and steady wins the race.
yes.
Don't rush to get anywhere. Really be intentional and strategic about what these next steps in your personal life look like, and be in competition with no one.
That's so
Mhm.
real. That's so real.
Enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. All right, well, Krista, now that we got you on, man, I know how phenomenal you are, but would love for our audience and listeners just to get a little bit of insight in regards to kind of who you are. Can you give us just kind of your background story, and really just what you do?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, thank you for the opportunity to connect with y'all on this platform. So for everyone that is joining, my name is Crystal McLean. I am the founder and president of Moneybox Academy. And just kind of a backdrop, like you asked, I started off learning about financial literacy when I was actually in college myself, having gotten debt. And then I dropped out of school, and at this point having debt, and now a single mother. Now it was a matter of like, what am I going to do with this? So I went through this almost journey of like trying to figure out what my life looked like, navigating. And now I have this child that I'm learning, but I definitely want to teach her within the journey. And so I started one by teaching myself, trying to get myself out of a hole. But I really got angry in that process. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I really got angry because I was like, why have nobody told me about this? Like why nobody told me about a credit card? Why nobody told me that they were going to be on campus and I was gonna get my first credit card, and when that first bill came, I was not gonna be aware of how to pay for it because my refund check was spent. Like, why did nobody tell me this? So I almost felt, you know, like slighted. And what I realized is that the system was set up to slight us, right?
Mm.
And so with that angry posture, at some point it became a posture of advocacy. So it was almost like I was in the finance space and then shifted to the banking space. And I was just like, anybody that sat in my office, you about to get these gems and these nuggets as I'm learning. Oh baby, you gonna learn, right? And so then I went on this journey of trying to teach my daughter about healthy money habits, and going into Barnes and Noble, not seeing any cultural books with Black characters in it, not seeing any books that was on her grade level. And so I remember leaving Barnes and Noble that day, frustrated then, and I felt the Lord say, "You write it." Okay, so now here's the mandate. So I wrote the first book, Harmony in the Empty Piggy Bank. That really jump started like my full advocacy journey of financial literacy. Started going across schools and traveling. And then I wrote the next book, No No Sonny, Save That Money, to show our Black boys, and also to talk about multi-generational wisdom through grandma telling Sonny all these powerful tools about finances. And then it just turned into this movement, and that turned into workshops and all these things across schools and organizations. But it was literally angriness that turned into advocacy, which now has turned into an organizational platform to teach people about healthy money habits.
Oh my god, that's so fire. Well, first, welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to go back to something you said about the quote first, because it's so dope how divine this is, right? Because I literally said something very similar. You were saying, like, when you're so focused on doing something so fast that you're doing it at this at light speed, you almost go in the wrong direction, right? And then you miss your purpose. You go past all these opportunities because you're focused on speed. And I was just telling someone, I'm like, the dope part about self-assessing or your life in general is that if you realize that, oh, I'm going the wrong direction, you have the power to turn around and go a different direction. But if you're always going full speed ahead, it's going to be hard for you to change directions. Think about that. If you're going 100 miles per hour in the car, it's real hard to turn or to make a sharp turn. But if I'm going 5-10 miles per hour, I can bust that, hit that corner real smooth. So I love that piece. But I love
Pivot.
everything. What you say?
I'm sorry, pivot. It always
Oh,
boils back to pivot.
one
Pivot.
thousand percent,
In
one
in
thousand
in, in
percent.
Alpha, let me throw this out there. We
Yeah,
always
yeah,
say no backward steps. We always say no backward steps, right? You don't want to ever retract how far you came, but it's nothing to put a foot in the ground and make a pivot with the next one to redefine, that trajectory in that direction. So
yeah,
again, that's just what it means to me, pivot. I love that word to death. So I'm back.
yeah, 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 yeah. Nah, appreciate that. Appreciate that wisdom. But Crystal, you had said like, man, nobody ever taught me this. Like, you got so frustrated, and it was just like, I'm kind of interested in like, who were you frustrated at? Was it like a specific like group of people? Was it your family? Like, or were you just like, like it's so frustrating that this information existed, but I just didn't know, or we just didn't know.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that question because it really was a culmination,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think in the beginning, it wasn't really directed at anyone specific, which actually made me even angrier because I
Yeah,
didn't know who to really like put that anger towards. And through my journey, now that I'm teaching my mom tips and strategies, and helping with legacy planning and things of that nature, I recognize, okay, you can't be mad at her because she didn't know. And then I look
Mhm.
around my family dynamic and I say, okay, you can't be mad at them because they're learning from you now. So they
yeah,
didn't know. And so then what I really did research, and I learned about, the black dollar, and I learned about how, how there were a lot of promises and how there were a lot of changes. I actually realized that a lot of this stemmed from slavery. It
yeah,
stemmed from, you know um taking and extracting the knowledge, and kind of putting us in this whole like box to say, you can go this far but no more. And I think, a part of me also feel like there was a group of people that got the knowledge, but it was a little bit of gatekeeping. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, who's going back to tell the people that now this is how you obtain wealth? That now this is, because there were so many myths about the American dream. So I feel like a lot of our people, just because it's like, oh, well, I have to go to college, I have to get a house, I gotta get, there was these myths about what the American dream looked like, and it was
Yeah.
always like we're trying to catch up. Um, so I was really more so, after it really boiled down, more so mad at society, the system. I recognized after doing a lot of research that there is such a systemic layer deeply rooted to this issue, right?
Yep.
You can go to look at redlining, you can go to look at the massacres where all these black owned businesses were thriving, and there was an ecosystem of money that is generating from cradle to the grave, type of ecosystem that's
Mm-hmm.
built out for it to be burned down. So it's threatening to another system. So that for me is when it started getting frustrated and things started clicking to say, oh, this was intentional.
Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
now, because I recognize there's an intentionality behind it, it made me now say, okay, how can we then counteract that with a level of strategy and intentionality on our part?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I,
love real quick. My bad, Marcus, for interrupting your wisdom. But I love how you said like you wanted to do it strategically, right? Because I think a lot of times like people do want to attack a problem, but they don't really have a strategy of how we're gonna do it. Like we want to protest and we want to band together. We want to get people to post on social media, but that's not really a strategy, to be honest. So I love that you were like you guys were strategic in that. You got it, Marcus.
yeah. So again, just giving your flowers is always family. You know. But I like how you really saw a problem, right? Well, one, the problem was an experience for yourself, right? But you actually use that to empower you to get educated, to be able to now disseminate this to those around you, to be able to empower them. Again, to your point, oftentimes we can't really get mad at those who came before us because they were gatekeep too, right? They didn't have the
Yep.
same
Yep.
information. Now that again we have all this information in front of us, it's easier for us to tap in and now be able to be the example to give back too. But I also know you kind of talked about like the systems and things in play. One thing that I've noticed and we talked about often on this podcast is like we have the mentality as a culture to obtain, but not always maintain.
Yeah.
And I know you saw that a lot from a banker perspective, right? You got young buck who drive a BMW XYZ, but like living in Section 8, not really doing that,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
again,
Exactly.
not trying to
Exactly.
attack anybody by any means, but our mentality is let's show that we got it, right? But not let's
Yep.
maintain it.
Yeah.
And I had to check myself as well too, because buying a house at 25, I'm like, yo, I did it, I got it. But now, and I'm thinking about, look, well, when can I get the next whip? When can I?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I didn't know. I can't call maintenance when I gotta get when the
Yep.
house is
Yep.
settling. I ain't know
Yep.
I can't. Right. And these are things that I didn't know. And it was
Yeah.
because one, I didn't have proactive conversation with my parents, right? And to be honest, I can't blame them to your
Yeah.
point as well, too. That's something that they may not have known to that extent. And prior to that, like I was renting. I was naive
Yeah.
to this. I didn't
Yeah.
ask these questions.
So
And for me,
Marcus, real quick, because
mhm,
I got a question because I think it's valuable for our listeners. So because it's right in alignment of what Crystal was saying earlier. So like, what made you feel as if you made it when you bought that house at 25? Like, what was that?
what? Why? Because my house now can fit two and a half of the houses I grew up in.
Yeah, now
That's
that's
why.
real.
Yeah,
That's real.
because for me, the what they say, the White House and the picket fence, right? I was able to accomplish that. For me, that's huge. I appreciate it. I'm a bask in it. But we also have this mentality of like, what's next, right? And we always talk
All
about
right.
that, James. We're always cool. We acquired this. What's next on the list? What else can I cross off? Versus one, being content with what we have and being intentional with continue to maintain it, right?
Yeah.
I ain't know this grass was gonna kick my butt like this every other week with this crazy weather, right? And
Yeah.
those are things that oftentimes we pass up on, and that's also taking it back to grandma's house, right?
Yeah.
Now, when grandma passed away, we aren't maintaining, right? She obtained, and that was where our joy and all our social gatherings were. But when grandma passed away, we ain't thinking about maintaining. Everybody want to check at the end of the day
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
and that's what divides. And I'm interested to know from your perspective, Crystal. I know you were in the banking realm for a while. I think that's actually where we originally met. What type of different nuances did you see across the board, especially from like a cultural perspective, when it came to again that mentality of obtaining opposed to maintaining?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, because when you started mentioning the statement of, the BMW, in comparison to Section A, so I remember when I was in a teller role, and I remember this guy coming up, and when I say flashy, best card, I mean flash. I'm like, oh, he balling, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
And so even one of the things I learned at my teller role, I saw this guy come in flashy, and this is like really like early on financial space, right? And flashy, like best car, dress, I mean shoes. So I literally had the mindset like, man, I'm about to pull up this account, it's about to be on another level, and in the negative, right? So that was one perspective, and I saw many other moments like that. But what shifted my perspective, so I was actually in investment banking for over 7 years.
okay,
So I did a lot of retirement planning, handling half a million dollar assets, and really making sure that there's portfolio management, so forth, right? And so this was with on the investment banking side, this is where the light bulb went off for me, because I had people that came in with a 2005, Ford Focus, and these are the clients that are my wealth clients that got $500,000 between their investment portfolio just with us, not to
yeah,
mention outside investments, right? And so I would never forget, real quick, one of the clients was an older lady. She actually worked at a manufacturing plant that's local in the area. And I asked her, I said, did you get any inheritance, kind of like looking at her assets while we're going through her planning? Did you get like any type of inheritance or anything? She said, mm-mm. I said, well, like over time, how did you accumulate this level of wealth? She said, I've always spent less than I've earned, and I let the rest sit.
mm,
And that was like another like catalyst, because I'm like, all this money and nobody passed that to you.
yeah,
She literally was like, I've always spent less than I've earned, and I let the rest sit. And so when I look at the guy that's fleeked out, got the best this and rims and all of that, with the negative account balance, and I look at the lady with no name brand shoes and a old Ford Focus, and I'm not saying don't live your life, please don't hear
Yeah.
that. What I'm saying is that they lived a level of sacrifice for a season that will allow them to live a level of pleasure in another season. Some of us are not really willing to sacrifice and to look broke, right, for a season, because we want to look like the Joneses. So social media has tricked us into wanting to be seen materialistically, how we travel, how we dress, and so forth. And so we actually miss the season when we can store up those acorns for a later time, where if we wanted to buy the house in cash, we could. That lady
yeah,
could have bought 3 houses in cash and not blink,
yeah,
because of the amount of assets she had accumulated. But it wasn't an inheritance, it literally was stashing for seasons.
yeah, yeah. That's so fire. That's so fire. So first, to the dude that came in there with the BMW.
You gonna learn today.
Like it's crazy. Like I don't know why we got so many people that live like that. But Crystal, it's so crazy. Like I share a similar story. I worked at a custodian bank for about 2 or 3 years, right before the pandemic, and so like we're handling assets from all around the world. I'm talking about millions and hundreds of millions of like British pound, whatever, you name it. And it was just crazy because like obviously a lot of those people like they dressed really well, but like when you saw them, like they had the most modest lifestyles. Like when you talk to them, like they were the most humble people. Well, not all of them. Let me be real, but like a lot of them were like real humble. You know what I'm saying? But the interesting piece, because Crystal, you mentioned this, is like we have this need for like instant gratification. Like we gotta have it right now. Like we don't wanna live below our means to save and drive a 2005 Honda so we can buy a house. We would rather buy the 2024 BMW and live Section 8, be in the negatives so we can look fly. Like it's crazy to me. And when you look at some of our, Caucasian counterparts, they will literally look bummy. Like wear the same shoes for 5 years. They got the brown rims around the bottom, and they don't even care because they got millions in the bank, and it's crazy. But Crystal, I want to ask you, when you first, was in college, kind of starting to make that, not necessarily in college, but when you first was like, all right, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of my financial state. I want to change it up, and you started practicing some of those new habits, right? And then you didn't want to be like some of our ancestors and be gatekeepers. You're like, all right, I'm going back to my community, right? So like, how was that going back to your community with all these new ideas, talking to some of your family members that you kind of didn't blame for not knowing, but like, was it a hard conversation to let them know, like, hey, pay yourself first, live by, less than, what you, below your means, like things like that. Was that a tough conversation?
I wouldn't say it was a tough conversation. I would say it was challenge in the sense of you're dealing with paradigms, right? And anytime you're dealing with paradigms, you are dealing with people's mental resolve that they've kind of sat in for years. So you're
Yeah.
coming against pretty much a level of doctrine that they believe and hold true. And so when it comes to that, um, it was a challenge in the sense that I recognized there were certain people that was not ready for what I had to offer at the time. Um, I say this, I see a lot more financial literacy come in, and I'm grateful for that. But I was teaching in a time where it wasn't really popular to
Yeah.
talk about. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And so even then, what I found is that to keep me encouraged was there's a group of people that's hungry for this knowledge. Find the group.
Yep.
So I realized there were some people that was like, I'm full off of what I know and I'm good with that. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's not my audience. But there was a group of ladies that was like, can you meet us at Panera Bread? Can you meet us at blah, blah, blah?
Yep.
And can we talk a little bit? Can you help me with this? I just feel like I can't, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Um, and so when those conversations where people was hungry to actually listen, I said I found a group and I'm gonna keep sewing into the group that's hungry enough until the other ones realize that they're starving and they just don't know they are.
Yep.
Mm, mm, mm. Sometimes that be hard because the ones you really want to save, they not gonna grab that floaty, and it hurts you inside. And sometimes I think they just seeing is believing. I've had a lot of these same conversations with my father, and to be honest, he was not trying to be receptive. But now when he saw the crib get purchased, when he saw things, he like, Dad, like tell me more. And
Yeah.
again, sometimes we got to kind of fall on our face, right? We talked about being shell shocked before we really understand the impact of things associated with it. Um, I'm curious to know, right? Or one thing, again, just giving your flowers. One thing I think you do a phenomenal job at is bringing it to that quote unquote at promise community, right? Yes, you share it with any and everybody, but at the same time, we're very intentional with educating our community that may not have access to this information. To be honest, I recall us going to Ramsey Street High, one of our alternative schools in which we service, and at first they wasn't really trying to hear, right? Let's be real. But as we dived into it and gave them some tangible steps, they found themselves being way more receptive and asking questions, creating their own budget, thinking about it. I'm curious to know, like, what was some of your experiences kind of early on, especially engaging with youth, where maybe they might not have found it as valuable, but again, how some of the different ways you have found to be creative to keep them engaged and inspired throughout your Money Box series.
Absolutely. That's a good question. So I would say I do believe just the Lord has given me a special anointing for dealing with young people, and that is from a ministry aspect as well as from a marketplace standpoint. And one of the biggest things I have learned about youth in my years is that they were like me, where I would see someone coming in, and first someone that's successful coming in that actually looks like me, it's already a culture shock. So for some of them, they are a shy to, I don't want to engage, I don't want her to see me, to, and the others is more of like a rebellious, like, who she, you know what I mean? So it's first kind of getting in and getting on their level a little bit, recognizing like all of these at promise young people, all of these young people, they have purposes, they have plans, they have visions, and sometimes they need somebody to see the vision within them. So, Marcus, I'm glad you brought up the Ramsey Street partnership with Roots Mentoring. So that was definitely a different one, but it was some girls in there when I started talking about the business, like they like perked up, like, oh, I
Yep.
could do, oh, but I can. Then there was some dudes in the back that was like, well, if I do this and I read this, and it's like, so now there is inspiration that's hitting the room, and something in them is boiling up to say, I know there's more. And even though I'm trying to show face and flex a little bit in front of the homies, at the end of the day, this is actually doing something on the inside of me that I want to learn a little bit more about. And so one of the biggest things I learned is talk to the future them. Sometimes
Yep.
we keep talking to the past them,
Yes.
and now you walk
Yes.
in, you're dealing with shame, you're dealing with guilt, you're dealing with all these emotions or whatever. And so if you come in there talking to them about, like, talking to them as if they're beneath, then you've already missed them. But if you come in there talking to the future them, saying, oh, you're gonna do my hair someday, oh, you're gonna be the one, do you know how much money you can make through that business? Now there is light bulbs, now there is inspiration, now there is excitement. And some of them will leave that space having more thoughts about the future than before they walked in. And so I recognize I actually have an assignment when I go in front of young people, because I need something in them to spark that will cause them to shift the way they're thinking and also talk to the future them.
That's so good. That's so good, Marcus. I wanted to say something to what you said earlier, like, and I hate this about people. I was gonna say our people, but people in general, they won't support your movement until it's moving. Like until they see you getting after it, doing your thing, like they see you getting your credit right. They like, oh man, I remember you told me that. Was that what you was talking about? And now you got, now it's a price associated. They like, dang, but,
Yeah,
and then they feel
yeah,
they, and then they looking at you crazy. I'm like, but when it was free, and I was willing to meet you at Panera, and I was willing to come to your house after work, and I was willing to, bro, they like, but man, like, and it'd be so crazy because they think it's like personal, but it's not. But this is why I said in the beginning when I gave my like little monologue about mentorship, is like, you gotta find your why. Like you gotta find why you're doing this stuff, because you might go to those Panera meetings every day and one person come, right? But when you really are truly passionate about whatever it is you're doing, like you're gonna continue to plant seeds, and that's something that I had to learn because I'm one of those people, like I need some type of reaction when I'm talking to you. Like I feel like I'm saying some dope stuff, so I'm like, I need you at least give me a head nod, a foot tap, something. I need something. So it used to
yeah,
bother me a lot, especially going into these at promise schools. You know what I'm saying? I love that. I got to coin that. I love that. But when we go into some of these schools with our youth, and like I know that I'm saying stuff that resonates because I see myself in those students. I've walked those same hallways. Well, not those literal ones, but like I've been in y'all's shoes. And so for me to go in there saying this and knowing, because how you said talk to the young, I mean to the old them or the older them, I'm talking to the young me. So I know that y'all need this stuff. And so, you know, I'll be talking and I might not get the response that I want or that I need, but what I learned is that you're planting the seeds, and the people that need it, they'll receive it when they receive it. And just like you said, those girls were lighting up like, oh, I could do that business, I could do that. I started telling my story because listen, facts tell, stories sell. Like I'm telling you, if you can intertwine storytelling into whatever you're doing, like I'm telling you, you can sell hotcakes on the corner. Like I'm telling you. And I was able to articulate my story to one of the young people, and I told you this story, Marcus, offline. And the young person was quiet the entire day. And for some reason, I had made a point about just they have the ability to do whatever, and I was able to paint a very clear picture using the self-assess module. And I said to him, like, man, bro, like you create your own circumstance. Like your circumstance does not create your reality. And so like I said some stuff how I overcame, and he was like, can I talk to you real quick? He pulled me to the side, and I was like, dang, I didn't think I connected with anybody because nobody said anything. But I'm like, but when you keep showing up and you love the work and you know that it's beneficial regardless to how many people receive it, like that is the true measure when it's like I know that I'm doing the right thing.
See, let me speak to that though, man. Sometimes it's about planting the seed for that individual. And even though they may not be responsive, when they go home and they plant that seed to that younger sibling,
Yeah.
it's the trickle effect.
Yeah.
And just talking to one of the young bucks earlier today, man, I was getting ready to walk into the barbershop and he called me. And I stopped and we talked for like 15 minutes. And man, he was just so thankful. And I didn't even realize it. he put the current leader in play, who was his young buck, who was his mentor. And
Yeah,
now he's calling him, thanking him, and bro, it's like a whole circle effect. So
yeah,
oftentimes we may not see the fruit of our labor to years down the line. I
facts.
remember a lot of my these trail young bucks in these alternative schools, they're not finna tell you thank you all the time.
Yeah,
But now I got young bucks calling me 5 years later, like, hey man, you remember when you think I wasn't listening, bro? I was listening. I remember that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
caught me and everything. And it's like
yeah.
it's a full circle effect. So I definitely resonate with
Yo,
that, bro.
so I remember where I was getting at because it was something that Crystal said. She mentioned paradigms, and we really love this subject at AGGF. But when we talk about like not blaming our parents or not blaming the people that came before us, like when we talk about paradigms, like this is a really dope subject because it's literally just a fancy word to say a multitude of habits. It's just the habits you've built over time. So like if you've had a household that never talked about money, that was always in debt, always in credit card debt, didn't really know the nuances of like home ownership, chances are you won't know any of that stuff. Like I'm just being honest. Like chances are as like you won't know any of that stuff. And so I think is dope. But Marcus, you talked about the shell shock piece. The only way that scientists have proven that you can change a paradigm is through emotional impact and repetition. Right? Those are the only two ways that we know. So any event that you have a heart attack, you then start trying to get your health in order. That's typically how it works, right? You go through a financial crisis, right? You start going to college using a credit card that you didn't know when the bill came, you had to pay it. You like, dang, I got to do something different because that refund check ain't covering it, right? It is at those moments that the paradigm is shifted. So when I go and I'm talking to these young people, like I know that in this circle, in this space right now, one, you haven't practiced this long enough because that's our problem, right? Like we'll get some information, we'll practice it for a week, we won't see the result, and we're like, man, that don't work. And I'm like, dang, like you, and this is a true story. I went to the doctor. This is crazy, right? And I got this crazy like amount of earwax in my ear. Don't know how it happened, right? But I go to the doctor. I'm like, man, I need to get this taken care of. And he was like, how did you figure this out? So y'all know online they got those little things where you can like look in your ear. And basically, I figured I had the wax in there. But he said to me, like 6 months ago, he said, this is what you do. You basically rinse out your ear before you wash your hair, do it after, like basically wash it 3 times. You like do it 3 times every time you get in the shower. I'm like, bet. All right, cool. I did it, occasionally. I run my head under there for like a couple minutes, like whatever. Came back. He was like, oh man, like I don't see any progress. Did you do what I told you to do? And that was a great pause though. It was a great pause. Let me check the time real quick. So
That's
it's
what happens when you popping.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So hold on, 38. I
Yeah.
bet. I know it's all good. We trust me. Like I said, we ain't perfect. This stuff we be having weird stuff happening too, so it's all good. Um,
Y'all done
but
seen me hit the mic about 2 times
bro, you
myself.
hit the
So.
mic. This man Marcus got a thing where he taps the desk, and I be like, bro, stop tapping the desk because you
But
can
that
hear it,
intro be so dope. I just be
bro.
lit, and
And
sometimes I be hyped. But yeah,
I'm like, bro, you can hear all of that. I'm like, but I can't say it because you can see me. So I'm like, and I just type real quick, Mike. And I know that's why I'm like, you might see real weird words come across because I won't say a whole
Yeah.
sentence. I'll just be like, Mike. And he'd be like, I bet. Um, all right. So I was saying the doctor. So the doctor had said to me, like, man, did you follow the regimen that I told you? And I was like, well, yeah, I did it. He was like, well, did you do it exactly the way that I told you? And I was like, well, no, I didn't do it that frequency. He was like, well, how did you expect to get the result if you didn't follow it the way that I told you to do it? And so I'm not gonna lie, like it was crazy. I was like, dang, you just unlocked something for me. Because like that is the problem when we come into these mentorship situations or when we're trying to change our lives. We just haven't done the thing long enough to get the result we want. And the problem is we don't know when we'll get the result. It's not up to us to know when we're going to get the result. If we put the work in, the result is going to happen. Period. And it was just like it took a doctor telling me that for me to be like, dang, like this applies to everywhere in life.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought that part up. So that was one of the reasons why I realized that even though I was doing really good to a sense by actually going to the schools and doing these workshops and things like that, that it was not enough because you brought up the term retention, right? And even like the emotional response. A lot of times in those one-off meetings, it doesn't prompt enough awareness for there to be an emotional response. So
Yep.
you don't really give people enough time to say, oh my gosh, I'm in deep debt, or oh my gosh, my credit sucks. Like, you really don't give people enough time to process that in order for them to trigger to say there is a much needed time for a change, right? And so I realized, like, okay, we're doing good. But the inception of Money Box Academy came where it
Mhm.
was like, we got to think about a scalable approach to making sure that this stuff sticks.
Yeah.
So with the programs, it is now a 4 to 5 to 6 week type cohort. And if you look at the statistics on group cohort style learning, it shows that over 72% there's an increase in performance just based off the fact that people are in an accountable setting. They're also with people that are on like levels as them. So they feel encouraged. It's almost like when you go to a weight loss class, right?
Yeah.
You and everybody around you are all pushing for the same goal. And so nobody
Mhm.
feels judged, even if your situation, I weigh a little bit more than you weigh, right? And so I said, we really got to get to the core. And a lot of times you won't get that in a 2 hour segment. And
Yep.
so that's where it was like, we got to hit that retention, right? So week one, we might just really be dealing with the assessment. What do I stand financially, right? What's my
Yep.
numbers? What is my net worth right now? Oh my gosh, my net worth is negative, right? And so when you get to the awareness that I really am in a negative net worth, it triggers a response to say,
Yep.
if I pass on right now, the only thing that I will pass is burdens and liabilities.
Yep.
That I will not pass anything positive to the next generation. If you are a parent, or you are even you just esteem well to like leaving a legacy, that right there is triggering
Yep.
to say, I won't leave anything positive behind to those that I love most, right? And so again, that retention, that emotional response of like, we got to think of a program aspect where we can really deal deep with these people for a certain amount of time to actually create some different habits, hit these mindsets and these paradigms, and begin to make some shifts on the positive spectrum.
Yes.
See, but you're also being intentional because you're addressing both sides, right? You have the money box for the more tenured folks, but you also have the book, which is addressing the young bucks early. So, one, I would love to hear a little bit more, kind of about the book, just overarching, right? Shameless plug. Go ahead and plug that in for us. But also, one thing that when we were talking about Ramsey really stuck with me, and I saw this like working at ADP, right? A lot of these parents or adults are trifling. Let's just keep it a buck, right? Putting different bills, putting different things in their name. I remember talking to a friend. He thought he was getting ready to go get a crib until he saw he had a repo in it. He was like, I ain't never had nothing to get repo, right? And I know you've experienced that a lot of times just kind of from a banking industry. So one, I want to talk about how from a cultural perspective, sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot or shoot the next generation in the foot, not really thinking proactively. And then two, how is the book kind of counteractive to that, or proactive to offsetting some of those different nuances as well?
Absolutely. So definitely bringing up the fact that um, one thing I want to say with that is that as a culture, when we recognize that we've already started on a slow scale, meaning we are already behind, and then as a parent or a guardian to put another barrier in front of your child on top of the level of the level of growth you're already gonna have to, get the level of push you're already gonna have to do. Now I gotta deal with the bill. Now I gotta deal with my credit being repaired. Now I have to we as a people have to do better, right? And so when I think about the book, it really puts a responsibility on even the it gives a level of accountability to our youth to say, I'm not ignorant to what healthy money looks like. I'm
Right.
not ignorant to that. So then
Yep.
when I see these things, I can detect that there is an issue that needs to be addressed, right? And so if you start these habits, so like No Sonny Save That Money, it's a really fun rhyming book, right? But it really deals with delayed gratification. Sonny like, grandma, I'm trying to spend this money. Grandma like, Sonny, but why don't you save it, honey? And grandma starts to talk about the power of saving and even allowing your money to sit to talk about compounding interest in a way that young minds, even K through second, can understand. And then when we talk about Harmony and the Empty Piggy Bank, which is a book about persistence, entrepreneurship, budgeting, savings, right? It literally is, hey, I want to buy this new thing. And mom and dad is like, you spent your money the last time. So if you want to buy this new thing, you're going to have to figure it out. And so she goes through that journey of starting a business in order to fund the thing she desires to do, and actually falls in love with it. And so a lot of times it is literally giving our children the chance to, one, learn, to two, make a mistake, and then three, to be held accountable even at their age, because that's where those habits are really built. So then when they get into college and high school and all these, advanced levels before adulthood, they already have some foundational habits that are at the ground level that they can kind of build on top of. But just throw them into the real world and say, you're in college now, deal with it, is rough.
Yeah, that's real, and I think part of it is a lot of those parents, their parents did that to them, and so they're like, I know it's wrong, but they still do it. And that just kind of brings me to this concept that Bob Proctor talks about. He's like, there's this knowing doing gap. Like, we know what's to do, but we rarely do it. And he said what's in the middle of it is terror barrier. Like, we're just scared of whatever it is. Maybe in this situation, they're scared of the actual responsibility of having to pay for that bill, or having to do whatever that thing is. So, all right, here's the easy way out. I'm going to just use my kid. But I love the fact that you were very intentional with, one, creating a book for young people to get, introduced to this information. Because, again, some of our families just didn't have it, right? We just weren't aware. So I truly cannot blame a person that just didn't know. Like, negligence, I just can't blame you for that. So I love that piece. Me and my girlfriend, Marcus, I've been bringing up the Bible a lot lately because me and my girl been reading the Bible. And in the Bible, there's a portion where God was talking to Adam, and he said to Adam, basically, because Adam just kept complaining, like, man, God, like, you basically keep like punishing us. Like, this is crazy. Like, why do you keep punishing us? And God was like, well, Adam, first off, you transgressed against me. Like, you didn't, hold this commandment. And he was like, but think of it this way. If I didn't tell you not to eat from that tree, you would have did it. You know what I'm saying? And you would have blamed me for not telling you not to, right? So I think of this the same way in terms of financial literacy, right? Like, if we as parents, as mentors, as advocates don't teach our people the information when they make these mistakes, like, who's really to blame? Like, right? Like, if we are the shepherds of this information, like, and we gatekeep it, like, who's really responsible? So just kind of keeping that thought process, Crystal. I hear that you're a youth, youth ministry leader, right? Or a youth pastor. That's what it is, a youth pastor. How do you kind of tie in the spiritual aspect into the financial literacy when going into these different sessions with our young people?
Absolutely. One of the things I've learned is to I lead by my life. So I am of the thought process that I don't have to come in with 1,000 scriptures and run in the text. I literally am a living epistle. Even the Bible commands us to be that, meaning, who I believe in, what I believe in, what my morals, what my values are, by the way that I live and by the way I conduct myself, right? And so it literally is, one, understanding that, because even that is like, you can sound overly religious, you can sound overly, and your heart and your posture and the way you handle people is truly far from
Yep.
the foundation of the word. And so that's important for me, is that I lead by my life. So I may not ever walk in and say I'm a youth pastor. Marcus, how many times have you ever heard me really say I'm a youth pastor, unless you reading out my bio like that? Like, it's like I don't have
Yeah.
to, right? Nobody, I don't have to always say, like, I believe in Jesus. Like, I know who I believe. And pretty
Yeah.
much, if you follow me for any period of time, you know exactly what I believe.
That's so real.
So that's one thing that I always want the youth to extract from that, is that your life should reflect what you believe. It even talks about the fruit, right? And from a financial standpoint, how do I bring those together? You think about stewardship. We're given money. And Marcus, you said something earlier that was really powerful. You said, a lot of times we're going after more, and we're not really grateful for the things we do have. And I
Yep.
know we live in a society that is, I mean, truly, it is all about the stuff. It's all about the materialism, right? It's all about, but there is no contentment. There is no like there, and so when you really see a lot of people that they're walking around here, they have no peace. Because there's no level of contentment. I always want the next thing, and I got the car, now I want this. Now I got the house, now I want this. Now I got this, and it's like, what are you racing to get to? Right? Why is it that once you got that you thought that you needed so bad, now you got to have something else?
Yep.
Like nothing is making you content. So I've learned even in that, a lot of people are not content within themselves spiritually, and so that shows up even in money habits, right? So because you're not content, you're overspending. You shop late at night. I've seen that in marriages. I coach married couples or engaged couples, and when someone is not content, or they're dealing with mental issues, or they're just not spiritually, whatever, they lack peace, and that shows up in financial instability, right?
Yeah.
And so even for our kids, when there's a lack of peace, they literally like, I got to get the next game, I got to get the next J's, I got to. And it's because the culture is telling them this is what they need. And one of the things I say all the time to the youth is that, you are when you become a consumer, you're exactly where the world wants you to be.
Yep.
And if we think about it, our young people are consumers and not producers,
One
in a
thousand
lot of
percent.
areas. And so that's why I love like what Roots Mentoring does. Like, you're literally putting them in spaces where they become to produce, and
Yep.
not just consume social media and be on TikTok all day and consume video games and consume, buying all this stuff and consume. Like, literally tap into who you are and the power that can to produce something.
Yes.
I don't know where I went from there, but I think I went
Yeah.
somewhere.
No, man, that was
Now you
so fire.
that
That
was
was
it.
fire. Yeah. Yeah.
That was it. That was spot on. And you actually helped me kind of pivot. So as we get ready to close out, I do want to hit you with the growth segment. Not just yet though. One thing that I know about you, and shout out to our dog Brittany, our mutual partner, you're really big on mental health, and you wear a lot of different hats. You're a phenomenal wife, you're a phenomenal mother, you're a phenomenal consult, all the above, right? But I know mental health is really big for you. You have a huge champion in your husband. Shout out to my dog Brandon. Teach me how to tie all the above. But what I can say is, I love you all's relationship, and what I really like is, Brittany was telling me about these little dolo trips, right? And not every married couple is at a place to be able to do that. But again, that accountability levels and things of that nature. For those who don't have never heard about this, and I ain't gonna stunt, when me and Brittany talked, I was like, huh? So give us a little bit of insight in regards to kind of how you decompress in the form of some of these kind of solo trips.
I'm so glad you said that, because actually I just came back from one that was actually planned by my husband for a surprise, as a gift on the launch event. So I just came back last week. But what it is I call it my sabbatical. And I, prior to marriage, I used to get away at least once a year. And my mom would keep my daughter, and I would just go away. I would take my journal, my Bible, and in the beginning, I would just get in the car and drive, and I would figure out like along the way, like, oh my gosh, I like this place here. Find a nice hotel in the area, and then I'm there for the weekend, right? And then over time, it just got a little bit more specific. But what it really looks like is that I recognize that I show up best when I have time to process. And so, because to your point, I wear multiple hats. Being now a nonprofit founder. How did you do it? Okay. And now being in full-time entrepreneurship with my consulting firm, ministry, and then wife, and then mom, and then all these things, I literally feel like I'm gonna lose my mind sometimes if I don't pull away. And so I actually realized when I first did it the first time, my husband was kind of like, because that was my first time doing it with him, with us being a married couple. When I came back, And I think I came back with that sense of peace. He was like, "Oh, this is a different woman." Oh, okay. So next, so it was almost like the next one. He was like, "Babe, when you going on your sabbatical?" He started calling him sabbatical. He's like, "Babe, when you going on your sabbatical?" And I think for him that meant, okay, so you done went over to the edge a little bit now. You start getting on that side a little round. So we need you to go decompress. And so when I come back, they're happy. I'm happy. I have a newfound sense of passion, and I feel like I can run on. But I need that time away from everything, responsibilities. My phone go on do not disturb, and so I challenged Brittany to do it, and I was glad she did it. But the whole point is like reset.
Yeah.
Take time for yourself. Yeah,
I love that. I might have to steal that one. Really
right
that.
out.
Yeah, but not necessarily for myself, man. I know my girl work extremely hard, man. She does a lot, so just planning a little trip or something for her, just letting her, let her hair down. And she's traveled by herself before, so it's not like it's new to her. But
She gonna
with,
love it.
yeah,
She
but
gonna love
having a
it.
little
You
bit
plan
more
that
attention.
trip. When you plan
But
that trip and you say pack your bag, your hotel is already booked, and
Hmm.
then I
yeah,
looked up the snacks is already in, the car is gassed up, and he
Yeah,
literally like that level of strategic planning for her. When she come back, you ain't got to worry about nothing for at least a month.
yeah. Well,
nah,
babe.
real talk. But
eh,
that takes a special type of partner though. Like, let's be real, right? In a married relationship, even just in a boyfriend girlfriend relationship, in the midst of courting, like that takes a special partner to understand it. Let me give you your time alone. It's different from I see you later. You go do your thing for the day, but not like take a weekend, go do your thing. I'ma hold things down at the fort. So again, like kudos to you all sincerely across the board. Like, and I'm gonna see how that go. I don't know if it gonna go as smooth as that, but I'm gonna mention that and see where we go. But either way, I can say like for me, like PR was that example as well too, and it did a lot for me. And sometimes you need to be kind of away from everything, and even that partner at that point in time. Not that it's combative or anything of that nature, but you need time with self. You
Yes.
need
Yeah,
time with self. So
agreed.
yeah, we can all relate there. We can all relate there. But let's hop into the growth segment. So we got something for you. Again, the previous guest left us some information, some insight. So, James, can you help me, good brother?
Yeah, we got you. So Vondale, one of our previous guests, he said he left a quote from Dr. Miles Monroe. The quote says, "Don't die old, die empty. That is the goal of life. Go to the cemetery and disappoint the graveyard."
And disappoint the graveyard, boy.
Yeah,
That joint hit me
yeah, that
hard when
was
he said that, boy.
that was hot. So Crystal, first off, would love to get your perspective on it, and then also what gem or question would you like to leave for our next guest?
Absolutely. I don't know if mine's gonna pack as much power as that, but to talk on that one real quick, Dr. Miles Monroe is iconic, and I listened to a lot of his, rest his soul, to a lot of his previous teachings. And one of the things he always mentioned, even around the same regard, is that the graveyard is the wealthiest place in the world, is because it's the
Yes.
place where the most books that have never been written, the most songs that had never been produced, the most, like, all the vision, all the potential that died because of fear, because of lack of courage, because of distractions and all of that. The graveyard is the most wealthiest place. And I just don't want that to be said of me. I say often that I want to die empty. And I've said
Mm-hmm.
it in my Facebook post, and it's because I want, when it's all said and done and I'm looking at the Lord, I really want to say, every book, every vision, every idea that I saw. Now, I tried to the best of my ability to push it out the way you told me to push it out, but I literally didn't allow anything to come in the way and distract me from that thing that I saw needing to be birthed in the earth realm. So I have a mission to die empty. So I love this quote so much.
It's real
Mm.
good. It's real good. So what
What
you leaving for
what?
our next
Yeah,
guest?
what you got? What you got for us?
Okay. Let me see. Let me see now. So one quote I want to leave is courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not absence of fear.
Trying to find me a balance in life. Why I'm still trying to gamble with life. Wanna be great, it gotta come with a price. Gotta watch what you ask for. I strive for these moments in life. I'm still learning and giving advice. I try carrying the weight of the world. See, I saw when I was losing myself. I had to catch my breath. Nobody got you like you got yourself. So it's important for you to know who you are. Cause in the dark you gotta fight with your heart. Even if your heart broken apart, but they still gon' judge me. So tell me how that's been here for me. I had to see that everybody didn't love me, like everybody ain't for me. I took chances just to see for myself. Cause for the longest I've been hurting myself, trying to blame someone else. I stand on it, don't regret what I did. Cause I can live that my intentions were real. My heart just needed to heal. Gotta get back to loving myself and trusting myself and better my health. Nobody loves you like you loving yourself. You gotta know who you are. Gotta get back to loving myself and trusting myself and better my health. Nobody loves you like you loving yourself. And